My name is Donny Imberlong. My family's Jaru, so from about 3.5 hours south of here in a town called Halls Creek. I spent a bit of my life in Kununurra, but majority of it are living out on the coast, a place called Drysdale River. Yeah, in between there and Perth, I guess boarding school and uni. And yeah, moving out to Drysdale River with my grandparents. We had a little shack on the bank of the river. It was just us three. There was no roads or minimal guests back then, and so lived very closely with, I had a pet Queensland groper that would come up every day. I'd feed it fish, and there was a couple of big crocodiles in the river, big saltwater crocodiles, and from sort of 8 onwards, that's where I started to find my love for country and for nature and that, growing up, especially being around my grandparents. They helped me. Yeah, they gave me that sort of older lens on the world, I guess, from a very young age, and so that helped me mature in that sense, I guess. And then, yeah, it's grown in leaps and bounds since then. Yeah. I saved up a bit of pocket money from taking, these big tourist boats would come up the river, and I'd take the guests for like a half-hour walk around the bush and talk about the plants and animals, and back then there was a lot of American guests that would be tipping pretty well, and so I remember after a few months I had this big wad of green notes. Never seen that much money in my life then, and so yeah, my grandfather, he was coming into town one day and he's like, I'll buy you a camera, and as a little birthday gift. And yeah, I remember it was this little Canon point and shoot thing, and I had a little pouch for it, and that was my prized possession. Always wherever I went, I'd always have it with me. And from early on, grandparents had a bit of an eye for photography, and so they encouraged that, and yeah, my grandfather bought a camera, and so we'd do little photography trips, and yeah, pretty much from 8, 9 it sort of blossomed from there. Yeah, so growing up at Drysdale River, where we live was probably, I think it's about 20 metres away from the water's edge, and there was a big alpha male in the river who my grandfather nicknamed George, and he was sort of about a 5 metre big saltwater crocodile. So yeah, that section of the river for a good sort of 15-20 kilometres was his domain. And yeah, when I was a kid, I'd go down, I'd wake up about this time every morning, get a little rod, go fishing along the riverbank, and we'd catch a queenfish or something and bring it back, and we had a little old-fashioned wood smoker back then, and I'd fillet it, and we'd have smoked queenfish for breakfast, and yeah, for about a good 2-3 months, this was my routine every morning. And obviously George had been watching my movements and realised that along the riverbank there was a bit of an ambush point. There was a bit of a bottleneck. There was some mangroves and bushes growing quite close to the river's edge, where he could sneak up and wait for me to walk past. And yeah, this one morning I wasn't really focused that much on fishing. I was sort of flicking lure here and there and skimming rocks and throwing sticks and stuff. And for some reason, my grandfather was awake that morning. He sort of came around the back of the bushes and saw the hindquarters of George poised in the grass waiting. And yeah, he saw me walking along and yelled out and told me to stop. And I was sort of looking in the grass, and then yeah, saw this the teeth and yeah, George was on all fours waiting. And so from an early age, yeah, I realised how patient and smart they are, and yeah, a healthy respect sort of developed from there. Yeah, it's like complacency is the biggest killer with them. They've got all the time in the world, and it just takes one chance, and that's it. So I studied environmental science, with the kind of rough dream of maybe working a ranger job. Growing up, that's the only sort of Indigenous jobs that I saw in land management were ranger jobs, and so I was, oh yeah, be one of those. And so yeah, very limited scope on what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to work, study environmental science. The army or working on the mines was the other options, but I didn't really want to do those. So I studied that, and the study I wanted to kind of lead into some job in the environmental field, work, conservation land management, somewhere back in the Kimberley. So that was the rough goal. But in 2017, I sort of lost motivation a bit and needed to do something different just to refocus again. And so took a few odd jobs, and one of them was working at the crocodile farm in Darwin. So I thought the role was going to be, working with kakadu rangers, like out in the swamp, and so I was like really excited. And I was only 19 or 20 at the time, and so I took it. Day one, my job was to, there's an area where there was sort of 3 or 4 channels, a few hundred metres long, V-shape, half filled with water, and with all these cages all in them, each containing a sort of metre and a half croc. And my job was I had an offsider. He had a big battery like in a bag on his back, and a big sort of cattle prod kind of thing wrapped in a big PVC pipe with 2 prongs at the end. So his job was to electrocute the croc. My job was to pull the cage out of the channel, and there was a square opening at one end, at the end closest to me, where the cattle prod would go into the cage. So job was to flip it around. If the croc was being difficult, I had to try and get him down to the end with the opening. And once I got him there, the offsider would zap him for about 10 seconds, stun it, and then I'd have to open the cage door and tape the mouth and eyes shut, and then flip it up, belly up on the top of the cage, and then the boss would come around and inspect the belly between the front and hind legs. That was the most valuable part of the body. And if that was all good, put the croc back in the cage, still taped, and put a little green electrical tape on the front, so we'd come back later that afternoon and pick it up. If it wasn't, if there was a superficial kind of scratch, we'd have to untape the croc, put it back in, and come around and check it tomorrow or the day after. So we'd have to do this every day. Initially, I think it was 20 crocs a day, and then it was ramped up to 50 crocs a day. Had big gardener sort of gloves on, and trying to undo duct tape. Sometimes the crocs would come back to consciousness, and so I'd have to shove them back in the cage without getting my fingers bitten off, and then the guy would have to zap them again and pull them out again, and definitely not what I was expecting in my first week. When I first started realising what the job that I'd gotten into really was, I remember I kept repeating to myself that it was something about like, oh, uni's not hard, or something like that. I just kept thinking, because at that time uni was the most difficult thing in the world. After a while you do become a bit numb to it, and you just sort of do look at the crocs as dollar signs, I guess. The first few weeks were tough. It was a bit of an internal struggle, but I was broke, I had no money. Still was a few more months until the second semester of uni started up again, so I had nothing to do either, and I didn't really want to come back home just yet. So I stuck it out, disassociated, but also pushed it kind of deep down to motivate me in a way, I guess, to at least get my degree and start doing some work in the conservation field. That was definitely the catalyst I needed. It's just shitty that it was in, killing an animal that I love for, some designer brand handbags and stuff. These crocs live most of their life in cramped pens, cages, overcrowded ponds. It is a depressing sight, coming to that every day. And from growing up, seeing them, in their natural habitat, living up to their full potential, to then just these dirty, dingy ponds. It's a huge contrast. Huge struggle for me initially up front was the mental struggle, the internal battle of, killing this animal that I love so much. And after a while, the physical struggle became a huge one. I've the sort of arthritis in my back, and you know, these crocs didn't like being messed with in their cages, and they'd be rattling around, and it was a pretty physically demanding job. In this day and age, in some ways, we do become desensitized to the images of pigs and chooks and stuff being kept in these large warehouses and that. But it was more of a shock seeing crocodiles being treated like that. I found that kind of brought the whole issue of just industrialized farming. It made it more personal, seeing it firsthand and being a part of that problem, I guess. So at the facility they had, I think, 4 or 5 large males, 4.5 to 5 meters long, and that was the most shocking part for me, because these huge crocs that have territories of hundreds of kilometers in rivers or the coastline were then confined to a small backyard pool size pond. And that was the part that would every day we'd have to feed them whole chickens, and would get a bit of a lump in my throat doing it, and sort of seeing the state of them, and felt like their spirit was crushed or defeated in a way, like just seeing these animals reduced to well, pretty much they were breeder males for the rest of the facility population. I guess currently the mentality to conserve crocodiles or apex predators in general is to put a price tag on them, and I guess that's resulted in the leather trade now for designer products. It would be nice for people to just want to protect crocodiles, just to protect them. The current code of practice definitely needs to change. It's a very outdated mindset. In the territory of all places, like they've pride themselves on being the crocodile state and all this stuff, and there's so many tourism industries that crocodile attractions are the backbone of them, and it is strange that they also have a large crocodile leather industry. I guess we need to find a better way to look after crocodiles without killing them. And it's just the the label automatically slaps a few $1,000s on it, and it does feel very colonial still. It's like the colony providing the resources for the mother country. It is a very colonial industry. I think the whole experience has definitely lit a bit of a fire to protect crocs, especially in sort of, for me, around the Drysdale River. We've got a pretty good relationship with the 200 or so crocs that live within that river system, and so it is a lot more remote than the Ord River in Kununurra, so there's a higher tendency for people to shoot the crocs out there. And so I guess just through the videos and photos that I post, I just sort of want to make them more personable, I guess, break down that stigma a bit with crocs. So as much as I can every weekend, I like to get out of town, go down the river, and sit on the riverbanks, spend a bit of time droning around and taking photos of crocs. And I find it's quite mesmerising, and it's a good way to de-stress, I guess, from the stresses of town life here. I guess the Instagram account started through just a love of taking photos. I find if I don't just go out bush somewhere and snap some pics of animals, I find I get very pent up and sort of just stressed out, I guess, is pretty much it. So every chance I got, I'd always take my camera with me and snap a few pics. And I found during COVID, I got a lot of friends over east, living around Melbourne and stuff, and I would get messages from mates and from people I didn't know that just said they appreciated the photos as a way of sort of escaping lockdown life. And that was nice to get messages like that, and so kind of motivated me a bit more to snap some pics for people as a bit of comfort for them. I guess it really started to take off once I got my first drone, and which I'd always wanted to, and once I got a bit of money saved up, and yeah, that just brought another perspective, I guess, to photography that I'd wanted to for so long. Yeah, I guess I didn't really set out to I don't know, create awareness about crocs, but yeah, I don't really know what the goal was. It was just like taking photos and that was it, and just sort of after a while people started to resonate with them a bit more, and it's sort of, I guess, naturally grown into, you know, a nice thing at the moment, I guess, yeah. I think majority of people, you know, are quite scared of apex predators, but deep down we've all got this kind of like admiration and love for them. But I guess for a lot of people, you know, they don't, you know, like majority of Australia lives in urban built up areas, and they don't get the chance to really see crocodiles or apex predators in their, you know, natural environment, and so, you know, they'll just go on living with that fear, but the admiration side, they don't really get to explore that as much. But I was lucky, I guess, yeah, from an early age I saw the other side of crocs, and you know, their gentle nurturing side. You know, there's a few areas down the river where females would come back to nest every year, and you know, when I was a young teenager, I'd, you know, take my dinghy down and yeah, go cruise down and park up and just sort of watch from a distance the mothers, you know, how they were so, you know, delicately regulating the temperature of the nest and take the young out one at a time and that sort of stuff. And yeah, and even how they interact with each other. It's a beautiful thing, and I guess realising from that age that, you know, like most apex predators, they're grossly misunderstood. Yeah, and then I think the photography and wanting to capture other sides of them, that sort of, yeah, my love grew for them. So the plans for next year is to move back out to my place out at Drysdale, you know, because it is so remote, and so naturally ecotourism was a way to earn a bit of money to support me to do my conservation work. And so, you know, I've got a good relationship with a few of the big tourist boats that operate from Broome to Wyndham up and down the coast, and you know, it's mainly a lot of retirees on these boats, and yeah, most of them they don't mind a bit of bushwalking and bird watching and stuff. So yeah, I'm looking at, you know, offering kind of half-day tours, take them around for a walk, and you know, talk a bit about the history of the river and my history with the river, and it does seem like a lot more people are wanting this sort of eco-tourism type experience. So yeah, it's an exciting place to be in, and it is, you know, means to an end. My goal is to look after the country out there, and so this is, you know, a sure way to earn a steady income to do that, and so yeah, I'm excited for next year, yeah.